Today is the feast of St. Matthew. And on the feast of St. Matthew, in 1953, a young Jorge Bergoglio, 17 years old, went to confession on his way to a picnic. When he came out of the confessional, he had a tremendous experience of being forgiven, a remarkable experience of mercy that he often alludes to. And with that experience of mercy, forgiveness, compassion of God, came a call to be a priest. He felt that as a forgiven sinner, he was being chosen by God, in spite of his sinfulness, to take on the responsibilities and the joy of serving the Lord as a priest. Years later, when he would become a priest, he would open his office of readings and discover on the feast of St. Matthew, a feast that always, ever after was important to him, he would discover the words of St. Bede the Venerable, who wrote that having mercy on him, he chose him. Mercy and choosing. So Christ had mercy on St. Matthew, a sinner, a tax collector, and then chose him to be one of his apostles. And the Pope would feel that very much for himself, that he, like St. Matthew, had been forgiven, had been shown mercy, and now was chosen to follow him. When he would become Pope, Pope Francis I, he chose as his motto, miserande atque eligendo, those words that he had found in St. Bede the Venerable, that he had experienced mercy and now was chosen to be Pope. Very interesting how important this call has been to him and how linked to mercy. Prior to being elected Pope, he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, and when he was called to Rome, he would escape every so often to escape the Vatican and go to the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi, where there is the famous painting, the first commissioned large painting that Caravaggio ever finished. And it has Jesus with his arm outstretched and his finger pointing at a seated Matthew at a table with other people. And Matthew, with his ray of light on him, is looking surprised, shocked, his hand pointing to himself, and the look on his face that says, "Me? A sinner you are calling?" And of course, Christ called him from his sinfulness as a tax collector to follow. The forgiveness, the compassion of Christ for Matthew was matched by the call that the Lord asked for him. And in the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, a young Jorge Bergoglio, as a novice, would have prayed over his sinfulness, would have then prayed over the forgiveness of God, and would have felt a call. So that the call of a forgiven sinner is at the root of a Jesuit vocation. That even our sinfulness does not stop. In fact, it almost amplifies the call of Christ. And so for all of us, the Lord calls us, forgives us, shows us mercy. And even in the mercy that we receive in that forgiveness, we come up with more of a reason to follow him, because we have learned to love him who has called us in spite of what we have done. What a wonderful extra motivation to serve God is this movement from sin and forgiven into being a companion of Jesus. And that's the wisdom of St. Ignatius, given to you on the feast of St. Matthew, although I'm sure you'll be watching this at another time. But don't forget that having mercy on you, Christ has called you.